Today, we recap the Brewers series, discuss the Arizona Fall League rosters, and preview the upcoming series against the Yankees. You're listening to the Bucko Banter podcast, brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Cue the music.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plates, and in case after case, run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
Adam, welcome back. Last home series in Pittsburgh this year just commenced today. At least we're staying in Pittsburgh, though, I guess. Not to make a joke of that, but
it's a sad day.
It's a really sad day.
It didn't really hit me until I started seeing like the videos and people scooping up dirt. And if you don't know what we're talking about, the Oakland A's played their last game in the Bay Area. They are moving to Sacramento and then Vegas. A little bit of a pit stop. I just took a minute to think about it, right? Like, imagine the Penguins leaving, and then the Steelers, and then the Pirates.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the people of Oakland have gone through in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That's brutal, man.
It is brutal. And even though the Warriors are right across the bay in San Francisco, it's still seen as a you left us kind of thing. Because it's the Bay Area. It's a rivalry. It's Oakland, not San Francisco.
No, man. So, it's sad. I mean, I'm sure the stadium in Vegas is going to be great, but that's besides the point. You just kind of stripped it from the fans. That's just the big thing, right? The players are always going to adjust. You're always going to find new things somewhere else, but I don't know how you recover. Do you stay an A's fan? What's the mental impact that has on somebody that's rooted for a team for 50, 60 years?
Yeah, I can't even imagine that, man, to be honest with you. I'd feel so angry. I just thought about today, the Pirates getting up and leaving, going to Nashville or wherever.
I'd riot. I would straight up riot.
Yeah, I think I would be rioting outside for sure. I'd be really, really angry. And obviously I feel bad for A's fans, but I don't have that same anger that they feel. I'm angry that the league let this happen, and I'm angry that John Fisher is the worst human being on earth. Maybe not the worst, but he's up there. But I don't have that same sympathy, or I don't have that same feeling that they do, because they've lived it. They've been there. They've gone to games at the Coliseum. They've watched this team with a bottom 5 payroll every year compete and make magic out of nothing. So it's a sad day for baseball. It's not a good day for baseball.
It's not. I had the same thought today, a shower thought. What if the Pirates got up, like you said, maybe moved to Nashville or wherever it may be? What would be my reaction? And I couldn't really think of I couldn't point a finger and be hey, this is exactly how I would feel, because I think I would just be so devastated. I don't know what I would feel.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be, I would be so empty. All this, just what would happen with the fandom, everything that you followed for your entire life. It's depressing, man. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just shout out to all the A's fans and everything that you've been through, and hopefully things get better. Andrew Destin, Bay Area guy. I know this is tough, and he was able to go out there and see, I think 2 of the last 3 games.
Yeah, he was there for at least 2. And also, not to get cheesy or sentimental, but appreciate what you have while you have it. I know we like to sit here and rightfully shit on this organization, which we probably will do a little bit today, regardless. But we are still extremely fortunate to have the most beautiful ballpark in baseball, and just a team here that we can gather around, leave the stresses of work or our everyday lives, and just watch and be entertained somewhat, depending on who we're watching. But still, we're fortunate. Is my point.
Well said, Scott. The Buccos fucked up this week, big time.
Let's get into it.
As an organization entirely. With the Rowdy Tellez news, if you've been living under a rock, Rowdy Tellez and Michael A. Taylor were DFA'd with 6 games left in the season to make way for, quote, younger guys, aka 30-year-old Joshua Palacios and Leobar Peguero, who have both seen major league time. Here's where it got interesting. Ethan Houlihan, shout out to him, put out the incentive tweet where Rowdy Tellez needed 465 at bats to get an extra $200K. A lot of contracts have this with free agents, big name players. You put incentives in the contract. I mean, a lot of them aren't going to hit, but it's just something, a goal to meet. Rowdy needed 465 at bats to get $200K. He had 461. 4 at bat shy, 1 game, and they DFA'd him. What the fuck are we doing, dude? It's like, even if the organization, I'm going to rant for a second, even if the organization, which they said, yeah, we were aware of it, but that had nothing to do with the incentive, then pay the $200,000.
Yeah.
This guy had 43 at bats in September. If you knew this was going to happen and you were not going to play him to begin with, you should have DFA'd him months ago. I know the argument's going to be made Rowdy wasn't good. You should have gotten rid of him before the All-Star break, probably. Sure, why not? But when you wait that long and then you're just that, I don't know what to say, ignorant, just blissfully ignorant, where you just think whatever you do, you can just get away with it and people aren't going to notice, or if people notice, it doesn't matter. It's so insulting.
Yeah.
Shout out Ethan. I know a lot of people were trying to bite off of his work. He does great stuff. If you don't follow his page, he breaks down all of the Pirates payroll. He does an excellent job, and now he's getting the credit that he deserves. So awesome to see Pirates creators getting some love, but man, that's tough. And let's not forget about Michael Taylor. Okay. That's kind of flown under the rug. Sure. He got DFA'd, whatever. He hasn't played in months. He hasn't gotten at bats. He's not even really playing as a defensive replacement that often.
No.
So why wasn't he DFA'd months ago if you're going to make room for these quote unquote younger players to come and get more at bats? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, listen, well said. First thing I want to address is the Charrington quote, which, what else? What more is he going to say? I think there's one more thing he could have said, but he basically said, "Yeah, we were aware of the situation, but had nothing to do with it at all." I mean, which is a white lie, right? There is literally a guy, in every organization whose job is to know all this contractual detail, right? So everyone in the front office, especially this one person or maybe multiple people, are very well aware of these incentives. So this move seems extremely calculated, because we were told all spring that, he's underperforming along with other guys in the offense. You got to give him time. We know that he's performing below the level. And then with 5-6 games left with this performance on the line, you cut him. I think it's optics wise. I don't know anyone with a brain that thinks that was the right move, because we're also going into an offseason where this team needs to take a step forward next year. We took a step back from last year, which is not okay in year 5 of a rebuild. So we need to take a significant step forward next year. But who is going to want to come play for this team when they pull shit like that? So, whether Ben had his hands tied behind his back, I don't know. I'm not in that front office, but still, I would be extremely angry with whoever's calling that shot, because you're putting the organization as a whole 10 steps back when we should be advertising as a destination, a place where guys want to come play. We got a beautiful ballpark. We got a bunch of young stars, but instead we leave this season with that ugly mark on us. It's really, really frustrating. Really frustrating.
When the Pirates are in the news, it's usually bad. It's some silly play that was made. It was the owner spending money on buildings when he could be paying players, cheaping out. And then you have this. It's like a never-ending cycle. I know. I mean, we're probably going to say this going into next year too. There's going to be some bomb that comes out that trashes this organization again, and probably rightfully so. It needs to be called out more to make change. Well, I should say this. You would think being called out on a consistent basis, like the Pirates are, in such a terrible and demeaning fashion, where it's just like you're bottom of the barrel scum. Why would you do this? You'd think that would motivate anyone to slightly change their ways, especially in this business where you need to put out an attractive product in order to bring in guys in free agency. Like you mentioned, that was another thing, man. It's like, even if they're lying, or if they weren't lying, and they said, like, listen, we don't really want to get rid of anyone else. Like, we need to make two moves in order to bring up Palacios and Peggy or whoever. It doesn't even have to be those guys. It's going to look bad. The optics are bad. Like, hey, everybody in this imaginary boardroom, he's 4 at-bats away. Maybe we do it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Or maybe we pay him the $200K and then just cut him loose. It's upsetting. It's depressing because it never seems like we could take a positive step to keep building off of good things that they've done this year, however so slight. And you're right, man. They got a great ballpark. They have young stars, Paul Skeens, O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds. You have Endy coming back. There's a lot to dream on. Unless you're a guy outside of the organization that sees this. And you're like, why would I ever subject myself to that ownership?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's frustrating, to say the least. It's crazy that there's nothing to believe in with this front office. At first, when the rebuild started, I was like, oh, Ben Cherington, this is he's known for building a strong player development staff and strong farm system. I mean, like, none of that. Like, I can't really think of a positive that has come out of this regime, other than some like random signings that they hit on, but they've missed on way more than they've hit. So this offseason, to say the least, I could sit here and tell you how mad I am about this Rowdy stuff. And with that said, Jeff Passan had a really good point too. And these arguments don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? He mentioned that the Pirates shouldn't have gone into this season with Rowdy Tellez as their first baseman anyway. That can be true too, but it's just the ethics behind it and how they handled the situation. And I'm really curious. I've been listening to a few other podcasts talking baseball at our Just Baseball network too. Is MLBPA going to step in? I don't know if there's much they can do, but you've got to think that the MLBPA is like furious about this.
I'm sure there has to be some type of clause where you can't just cut guys loose for contract incentives because they're approaching it. If it's intentional, I'm sure that's not allowed.
How do you prove it?
Exactly. You could put that in writing all you want. All you have to say is like, hey, listen, 6 games left. We want to see what Joshua Palacios has to offer.
Yeah. Because we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
But my main point is, and how I wanted to like segue out of this, unless you have something else to say, was the fact that this offseason is probably the biggest offseason in the last decade or more.
I would say it's the most important offseason for this regime.
Huge. So I'm selfishly like really excited to cover it, but the pressure's on for Ben and crew, and I'm nervous too as well.
Oh, yeah. It's not going to, like, we're going to get our hopes up. We're going to fall in love with a couple of free agents, and then they're going to go and sign
with the Reds.
Right. Or like I was going to say they're going to sign like a 45-year-old vet for a year.
Rich Hill.
He's still out there. He's trying to hit, man. I heard Rich Hill's trying to play first base.
That's a huge.
He's reinventing himself, man.
Yeah.
Oh God, I was gonna do the weekly recap and talk about Rowdy and Taylor being DFA'd, but you already just heard that. It was an interesting week to say the least. There was some good, there were some bad. Let's start with the good, Scott.
Yeah.
Luis Ortiz has been awesome this year. Of course, he's had a couple of innings here or there where he's been susceptible to a little bit of a meltdown, but his four-seam sinker cutter combination has just gotten better and better, it seems like. And he had another terrific outing this week against the Brewers. And the question has been asked, and it's going to be continued to be asked throughout the offseason. Has he earned a role in this rotation next year, or at least the right to compete for that number 5 spot?
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that he's a guy that you can dangle out there as a trade chip.
Okay, I haven't heard you talk about this yet.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was Rosati or someone else. I saw someone tweet like, I think it'd be really smart of this front office to try to see what you can get for him, because we have a plethora of pitching options coming next year. I mean, Oviedo's coming back. I think Burrows and Ashcraft could be candidates to be traded too, but like their options. Harrington's an option. Chandler's an option. I guarantee you both of them start in AAA, but still, like, they won't be long until they're in the big leagues. There's a lot of pitching in this organization, and in order to replenish the position player depth, especially at the upper levels, I think dangling a guy like Luis Ortiz, who's proven, might be smart. His value might never be higher.
I would agree with that last part. My only concern would be the bullpen is going to be a major issue that needs to be addressed. And if he doesn't make the starting rotation, which I think he will, at least to begin the year, he's proven to be so valuable in that long man role. I mean, Falter could also move to that probably.
Or you could trade Falter.
Or you could trade Falter. A lot of options. Are they going to happen? Probably not. But speaking of Bailey Falter, let's get into Tuesday. Let's talk about the Brewers series, Scott. Falter took the mound, 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 earned, 1 walk, 5 Ks. He's going to finish with a 4.26 ERA. He's going to have one more start. He's going to have one more start in New York. He's got a 4.26 ERA right now. He only had 7 whiffs on the day, 60 strikes on 92 pitches, 94% zone contact rate on the 4-seam. So just the definition of not missing bats. Bullpen, Matson, Wentz, Bednar. Matson had a rough outing, 3 earned, 1 hit, 4 walks. His ERA sits at 8.10 right now. A good story, just not a good outing. And then Wentz and Bednar didn't do bad, but this game really had not much going on, especially with the offense. Triolo continues to hit, man. 3 for 4 with an RBI. Joey Bart, 2 for 4. As a team, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 for 8 runners in scoring position, and 1 run. You have any notes on this one, Scott?
No, I just want to note Triolo, and may have mentioned it before. I know we've talked about it personally, but Triolo has made some adjustments, and I'd love to dive into that. But he's pretty much raised his average over the last month from like 190 to 220. So, while he hasn't been a bright spot on this team, that's something you can be like, okay, something improved this year. There was a individual or a tool of an individual that made improvements as the season went on. And I think Triolo is a guy that you can be like, yeah, this was definitely a disappointing year, but I like the way he ended it. So
I think you can make the argument for what they did with Rowdy with Triolo and say that they didn't give him the same opportunities because, of course, Triolo started the year. He won the second base job. He didn't hit. And then he got hot towards the end of the year as he started seeing more and more consistent playing time. Rewind back to the beginning of the year when Rowdy got off to a historically bad start. There wasn't any consideration of sitting him for a prolonged period of time or replacing him. It was just, there's a breakout in there. I think that's an exact quote. there's a breakout in there somewhere. And they continued to play rowdy until, listen, he had a decent middle of the summer, and then he reverted right back to the old ways. You can make the same argument for Triolo. Really, you could have just given him all those opportunities as well. Instead, you're playing Triolo now at first base at the end of the year, where you could have probably gotten him reps knowing that you're going to get rid of Rowdy anyways. I digress. Why don't you get us started on Wednesday?
Yeah, so Wednesday, a little bit, a much better game, I guess you could say. Luis Ortiz, 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 5 Ks. Just that 1 run was on a homer. His ERA will finish at 3.32 on the year. He had 7 whiffs this game. Definitely a bright spot for this team this year. Nice to see Luis take that step forward. They ended up winning this game 2-1. Santana and Chapman also pitched. Santana got his ERA below 4. He's at 3.88. He's had a really good last 2 months, like probably one of the best relievers in the league these last 2 months. And then Chapman got his 12th save. Peggy was our first star of the game. He was 1 for 3 with a double. That double scored the 2 RBIs. There's only 3 hits total this game. The other 2 hits came from IKF, 2 singles. But 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position, 3 left on base, 11 Ks, a little bit of a pitcher's duel, I guess you could say. Was this the Freddie Peralta game? Yeah.
Yes.
This was Ortiz versus Peralta. So Ortiz versus Peralta, kind of a pitching duel here. Only 3 hits for this offense, but the Peggy double comes up clutch.
Looking back at Ortiz, when he first came up with the Pirates, he was throwing upper 90s, sometimes touching 100, right? His 4-seam is averaging like 89 right now, but it's the ability to mix it so well, like I mentioned, with the cutter and the sinker, and tunnel those pitches and just move ever so slightly in whatever direction that it makes him so successful. And to be able to make that adjustment, that's a significant adjustment to like have the control and the awareness and the mentality to kind of take a step back and realize like, hey, throwing 100, 99, 98, that's great. But if you could really hone in on your craft and disguise all of these fastballs, it's going to make him successful, and it's shown.
And he varies the shape of his fastball, right? He has a fastball that basically goes in every direction. So he's changing the eye level of the batter. And often I would argue that is more important than straight velocity. Is you want the batter to be guessing. You don't want him to know what's coming. You don't want him to be sitting on one individual pitch, and to be able to change his eye level is huge, especially in today's game.
Yeah, absolutely. People could hit 100.
Yeah,
you can gear up to hit 100. It's a matter of the movement and keeping guys off balance. That'll bring us to today, Scott. We're recording on a Thursday. The Brewers took the series 2 out of 3, 5-2 L. Mitch Keller just did not have a good last couple of starts to end the year, man, which is really disappointing. His ERA is going to sit above 4 at 4.25. 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. He had 56 strikes on 90 pitches. Just wasn't going for him, man. You had a big bullpen day with Baraki, Holderman, Bednar, Majinski, Beeks. Baraki gave up 2. I'm still excited to see Baraki. Hopefully they can bring him back next year. He's a free agent. I think you could bring him back on a really friendly deal. You need the arms. It's just
lefty arms too, by the way.
What was that?
Lefty arms too.
Lefty arms, absolutely. Speaking of lefty arms, Aroldis Chapman didn't wear sleeves for the first time this year.
Terrifying.
Just a whole nother monster. Oh my Lord. That man is huge. It's crazy. I know you see him in the gym all the time. He basically lives there.
Physically imposing human being I've seen in that gym ever. So
it's wild. It's wild. But hey, last series against the Brewers, this Brewers team doesn't impress me that much.
No,
not at all. And they ran away with the Central, which should tell you something, that this division should have been open for just about anybody and pretty much everyone else. I mean, the Cardinals blew it, the Reds blew it, and the Pirates, I mean, absolutely crumbled halfway through the year, which when you play like that, yeah, it's expected. Any notes on this Brewers series before we move on?
No, man, I think, like you said, the Brewers aren't a team that's going to blow you away in any way. They don't make a lot of mistakes. and they're just well coached. So I'm interested to see who they match up with in the first round. The NL is going to be an interesting watch in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a variation to an old segment this week. We're going to go down on the farm, but guess what? No one's on the farm right now.
No.
They're about to go out to a different farm out in
There
Arizona.
are some farmers that are going to work on one farm to hone in their craft.
Absolutely. And that's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, believe it or not. Just a lot of good crops
Farmland
out there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Real big farmland. Got a lot of guys going out to the fall league. Some that I expected, some that I didn't expect. They're going to be playing for the Scottsdale Scorpions. You have some pitchers, some infielders, a catcher, some outfielders. You even have a hitting coach going out there. Let's start with Mike Burrows. This is the big name, Scott. He was on the 40-man all year. Tommy John guy making his way back. He looked really good in AAA. You mentioned like, hey, this could be an arm maybe that you dangle around, but you definitely want to get him more reps to get him back to what you believed he could be. I mean, he was 1-3, 5.26 ERA, 15 games, 51 innings pitched. He had 59 Ks with a 1.54 whip, only 24 years old. So there's still a lot to dream on here.
Yeah, I just want to note, like, maybe the 5.2 ERA and the whip don't impress you, but I think a lot of those numbers are kind of distorted from his, when he came back from his rehab and when he started throwing in brains, and he worked his way up all the way to Indy to where he left off. And it was a slow start, as you would expect. He's probably working on specific pitches, getting the feel for pitching again in a live situation. So he was obviously a candidate to go to the Arizona Fall League. I'm not surprised by this at all. One note I also want to bring up. It's always interesting to see how they pick the guys to go to the Fall League. It's usually guys coming off an injury that need more work, or any position player that they want to see more reps, especially against the top young prospect arms. But something else I was thinking about. Could this team, or any team, but we're talking about the Pirates, send someone to the Arizona Fall League to get seen for a trade?
I would think absolutely.
So, I mean, I've definitely heard of that happening, but I'm just, we talked, I mentioned briefly Mike Burrows being a potential arm that could be dealt. And who knows, there might be other guys in here that they think that they can dangle in front of other scouts, but just, a thought.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's also the Rule 5 draft as well.
Exactly.
So there's a ton of scouts out there. You definitely want to see what some of these younger guys got. There's some guys that got drafted in the first round this year. I know Jack Caglione is going to be out there. There's going to be some old buccos that are going to be out there. Jung Suk Shim is going to be pitching, the legend of Shim. So that'll be exciting. It'll be interesting to see. Let's get into Christian Curtis. I think this is an obvious one.
Yeah.
Somebody who dealt with injuries all throughout college, really only had 1 year, like a full year in college at Arizona State where he was healthy. The Pirates took a chance on him in the 12th round. They made it work. Awesome guy. Go listen to the episode that we had with him earlier in the year. He's great, and his stuff can be gross. He could pump it upper 90s if he wants to. He's working on, I think he's got a changeup that he throws, and he's still working on developing some of these secondary pitches. 2-3 on the year, 4.06 ERA in 16 games played, 75 innings pitched, 81 strikeouts, 1.34 whip. Only 22 years old, Scott.
Yeah, this is another guy that is obvious that he's an obvious fit for the Fall League this year. 75 innings is probably close to, if not the most he's thrown in a year. So got to get that the stamina, the workload up, get him ready for big league innings eventually. But I'm excited to watch him continue to grow, especially against some of these top prospects. Let's go into Derek Diamond. Derek Diamond is another arm that we're sitting out there. 23 years old. He was a 2022 6th-round pick out of Ole Miss. He was actually Ole Miss's Friday night starter that year. He played at high A Greensboro this year, was 5-6, was a 4.80 ERA and 19 games started, 83 Ks and a 1.32 WHIP. So yeah, Derek Diamond seems like he could be a potential back end rotation arm, if anything, or a long man. But another arm in his system, another SEC advanced college arm that looks to continue to grow out in Arizona.
Yeah, I like keeping the college arms going. Just getting building up. I think those guys are a little bit more mature to handle it. I thought Carlson Reed might have a shot.
Same.
This year. And that's why I'm a little disappointed in that. But you had a couple more pitchers, right-handed pitcher. I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah.
Brandon Bedoya,
maybe.
Bedoya?
I don't know.
That's probably
He's a reliever.
Right. That's probably right. International signing out of Australia. If you heard Scott and I talk about him this year, you're probably listening to the wrong podcast. But I don't think we ever mentioned him once. Right-handed pitcher, 0-5 on the year, 4.11 ERA in 27 appearances, 4 saves, and 30 2/3 innings pitched, 44 strikeouts, 1.21 WHIP. Only 23. Finished the year in high A Greensboro. He had 1 appearance in Indy. Scott, I don't really have much on this guy other than, hey, I hope maybe he does well. Maybe this is somebody you just kind of want to throw out there, like you mentioned, for other people to see. So later on in the year, if he catches the eye of somebody, maybe somebody thinks they can develop him, it could be a good trade piece. I just really didn't see this one as a chip going to Arizona.
Yeah, I don't really know the full story on him either. Did he miss some time? Only 30 2/3 innings. Like, is he coming back from injury too? Not sure. Don't know too much about Brandon, but that is one of the relievers we're sending out there. The other one is Eddie Yean. Eddie Yean is a guy who actually has a chance to be in this big league bullpen next year, I think. Probably our best reliever prospect. He was 7-5 this year with a 3.36 ERA and 48 appearances. He had 5 saves in 75 innings, 69 Ks, and a 1.32 WHIP. He's 23. He was acquired from the Nationals in the Josh Bell trade. So Will Crow is gone, but we still have Eddie Yean. So I think we won that trade.
Yeah, that's what people are saying. I've heard it.
That's what people are saying. But he was mostly this year in Double-A Altoona. He spent his last maybe week or 2 weeks in Indy in Triple-A. So he's close. He's 23. And I could definitely see him getting some opportunity in the pen next year in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. He finished the year strong. That's all you can ask for when there wasn't really much going on in Altoona to begin with. So he was a little bit of a bright spot there that was able to make the push to AAA. Let's get into the good stuff, Scott. Termarr Johnson.
Hell yeah.
Is going out to Arizona, which is amazing because he absolutely needs to keep getting reps and figuring it out. The big thing with Termarr, he has power, probably more power than you expected. I think you expected the hit tool to be a little bit more polished coming out of the draft. I mean, I think he was graded as the highest hit tool in that entire class out of high school. Swings and misses a lot at pitches in the zone. That's something they definitely need to work on. He finished the year slashing 237, 366, 752, 15 bombs, 54 RBIs, 22 stolen bags. He's still only 20 years old. He's in Altoona right now. He's probably going to start in Altoona next year. Whether he stays at second base or they try and move him around or he still continues to get time at shortstop, I don't know. All I know is we need him to get as many at-bats as possible. And what better way than the Arizona Fall League where you have a ton of top prospects and you're going against really good competition to kind of see those pitches, get a little bit better feel for it going into next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was really hoping he'd be on this list. And he's a guy that, for the lack of position player depth, I feel like he's a guy they can't miss on. I'll just put it that way. So put all your chips in on Termarr Johnson. Not sure where his future home is position-wise, but we'll figure that out when the time comes. I think maybe being around all these high pedigree type prospects will be good for him, will be challenging for him, because he might not face pitching this good in a month in Altoona. Like he's just going to face it every day. So this is definitely good for him. I'm excited for tomorrow. Let's move on to Sammy Siani, outfielder. He's a little bit older. He was a first round pick or a competitive round pick in 2019 for the Pirates out of William Penn Charter out of Philly. Is a high school in Philly. He's 23 years old. His brother actually got a lot of time with the Cardinals this year in the bigs, Michael Siani. He spent most of his year in high A Greensboro and then finished at double A Altoona, 265, 338 with a 738 OPS. Pretty average, I'd say, slightly above maybe. 9 homers, 48 RBI, 16 stolen bases. So just like his brother, he's got some speed, can play up the middle in the outfield. Is good defensively. I don't know how much true pop is there, but he's a guy that seems like he could profile as a 4th outfielder in the bigs. So, excited for him to get more reps. I think he had a little bit of an injury history, so he's probably played more games this year than he has in the last couple. But yeah, another good candidate to get more reps out in Arizona.
I think a 4th outfielder is the ceiling.
Yeah.
For Sammy. Sure. I mean, the development has definitely been hindered a little bit with the COVID year and just getting off the ground, but definitely a great candidate for the Arizona Fall League. Let's go to infielders. Kervin Pichardo, acquired from the Padres for the Jackson Wolf trade. He's in double A, 22 years old. He's been fine. He's been okay. 252, 306, 679, 11 bombs, 49 RBIs, 8 stolen bases. Really not eye-popping numbers here. Not a big body guy. There's not a ton of pop. There's not like a ton of speed. He's an average defender. So I guess just getting a guy more reps, right? There's not many position players to choose from at this juncture. I could have made an argument for more guys in high A.
Yeah.
Than Kervin Pichardo.
Mitch
Jebb had a really strong end of the year, stole a ton of bags. Not that he has a position either. We'll see. But Kervin Pichardo will be out there. I don't really have much notes on him other than, got him this year. He did okay. Nothing great.
I think this is a common case here where they're just trying to see what they got with him.
Yeah.
They're just trying to see as much of Pichardo as possible. He's a little bit on the older end for his level. He's been in the minors for a little bit. So, I think his ceiling is probably a utility player, bench guy. But, we'll see. He seems like he has a little bit of a pop for a middle infielder. But excited for him to get more reps too. Let's move on to the very last player, catcher Giovanni Blanchard. And I would be lying to you if I told you that I knew he existed before today, but he is the catcher representing the Pirates in the Fall League. He was in Greensboro and Altoona for most of the year, and I think mostly as a backup. I know Greensboro had Sean Ross, and Altoona had Abraham Gutierrez and Carter Benz. So just bounced between the two of them wherever he was needed. But he's 23 years old, so he's on the older end for his level too. 223, 354, 674, slash line, 3 homers, 25 RBIs, and 175 ABs. Don't have anything else on him. I would have liked to seen Axiel Plauz or Omar Alfonso go to Arizona, because I think one thing this organization has is multiple catching prospects.
Yeah.
On the position player side, because not many organizations can say that, hey, we have a catcher. But I feel like Alfonso, Plauz, and Endy, obviously, are all guys at this point.
Yeah. And hopefully one of those guys can stick next year in ND, or if Bart ends up just being that guy consistently, you're able to move some of these guys around a little bit more. But this one surprised me. I was kind of more hoping for Omar Alfonso, considering that he made the jump to high A this year. And that power was definitely there with the 13 home runs. He had 97 hits on the year, averaged 252. I know that kind of varied throughout the season, 760 OPS, but it'll be interesting to see these guys out in Arizona. I'll be out there the last week of the season. I know Just Baseball will be out there for the first 2 weeks of the Arizona Fall League. Arm and Jack will be out there reporting. If you haven't listened to the Just Baseball podcast, go listen. They broke down the entire Arizona Fall League today, what they're looking for and how they're going to report on it. So really exciting. Hey, baseball doesn't end. Even when it ends, it doesn't end. It's all year round. After this, we're going to look forward to the Dominican Winter League.
And Andy Rodriguez is not allowed to go. I don't care what he says. I'm not losing another prospect to the Dominican Winter League.
How do you feel about that? I mean, like, what's the say in the organizations, like from organizations?
Oh, dude, this was actually, so when I interned with the Mets, like we had a list of guys who wanted to play, and we had to like go through and track like all their innings they threw, if there was a pitcher, like basically like accumulate data on their workloads, because technically I don't think unless this has changed, I don't think the organization, especially the Hispanic guys, can say, no, you can't go, but they can like kind of urge you to not go or not play. So I think they focus more on the pitchers, but a lot of these guys have relationships with these, I don't know if you want to call them organizations or franchises down in the Dominican, but like Fernando Tatis's dad runs one of them. So it's another way for these guys to make money in the off season, and you can't deny them that. But I'm sure there are conversations being held in the Pirates front office where they're like, pinpointing the guys that probably will want to go, and they're definitely having conversations about it. But yeah, most of this stuff is like predetermined, like before the season. So
yeah. Well, looking forward to it either way. Scott, let's get into the Yankees preview.
All righty. Game 1 is Friday. Just a note, we are recording on Thursday night. It's about 9 p.m. right now. We don't have confirmed starters for the Yankees, but we are going off of how the rotation has been. And just note, too, the Yankees are probably going to be the 1 seed in the AL. So I don't think they're trying to rest anybody right now. If anything, they're trying to get guys more innings. So I think they're going to stick to their normal rotation. And if they do, Friday night starter will be Carlos Rodon, who's had a bounce back year. He will face Jared Jones, and he's been 16-9 this year with a 3.98 ERA and 31 games started, 190 Ks and a 1.21 WHIP. His arsenal includes a four seam that he throws almost 50% of the time, sits at 95. He throws hard. He's a hard throwing lefty. And his slider is his bread and butter. His 87-mile-an-hour slider, throws it about 25% of the time. He's got a change, a curve, and a cutter that he mixes in as well. The slider is the go-to secondary weapon. That's his put-away pitch. That's what he's been known as since he was drafted on NC State, since he was with the White Sox. The big thing with Carlos Rodon is his command. It can be super iffy, and he can, if he's not on, he's known to give up a lot of barrels, some hard hits. He also just lacks overall athleticism. He's a big guy. He has thick, strong legs, and he needs to use those strong legs to generate a lot of the power from his lower half. Hence, the hard stuff that he throws. I mean, an upper 80 slider, mid to high 90s fastball. So Carlos Rodon should be an interesting matchup for this team. If the bats aren't going well, I can see a 10 to 12 strikeout night.
High whiff rate when he is on, and a good chase rate as well. So even when he might be a little bit off and missing the zone, it could be on purpose with those secondary pitches, which he also has a 39% whiff rate on the slider, 48% whiff rate on the changeup, and 28% whiff rate on the curveball. So everything really plays off of that four seam, which is why he has such great production with the secondary pitches. Just going to generate a lot of swings here, 70% on the year. So he can get barreled if he's staying in the zone. So hopefully you jump on that four seam as early as you can. The splits not great for either side. Versus lefties, 224, 281, 352. Versus righties, 238, 307, 450. Slightly worse on the road this year, 261, 326, 459. But man, he's had a good year.
Yeah, big bounce back here. He didn't he looked like a shell of himself last year. So definitely more prime Rodon this year.
Absolutely. We have predicted Luis Gil to play on Saturday versus Paul Skeens. Talk about guys that have been absolutely filthy.
That's
this
big
year.
On big.
That's big on big, man. This might be some of the hardest stuff to hit in the entire league. It comes out of an effortless delivery, and it just moves so much. Even when he's off, he's just hard to hit when he's not feeling it because of the spin that he generates, the movement on all of his pitches. He's 15-6 on the year, 3.27 ERA, 146 innings pitched, 166 Ks. Expected batting average, Scott, 209, 88th percentile in the entire league. High whiff rate, high chase rate, an arsenal of only 3 pitches, a four seam, a slider, and a change. And the slider is hard. Absolutely gross. He throws them all hard. Yeah.
They're all hard.
Yeah. The slider batting average 172 on it this year. The four seam, which he throws 49% of the time at around average 96, he could pump it up upper 90s, 205 batting average on it. The changeup 164 batting average on it. All around, not great for opposing hitters. This is somebody that I'm sure the Yankees are just absolutely high on right now. He can get barreled a lot. And here's the deal with Gil. A lot of control issues. When he is not on, he can't find the zone. He kind of just beats himself. Yeah. I think the only one that's really going to compete with Luis Gil is Luis Gil.
Mm-hmm.
Because his stuff is disgusting. He's just hard to hit generally. If he leaves some stuff up in the zone, he can get barreled a little bit. But overall, just an absolutely incredible year.
Yeah, Luis Gil, like through the first 2 months, was a Cy Young candidate, and he was out all of last year, part of the year before, due to Tommy John. So they were really happy to get him back. This is a guy they acquired from the Twins in a small trade for Jake Cave, who is a historical 5th outfielder. So big get for the Yankees here, and he is I feel like he gets put in the bucket of like a 2-pitch guy, like some other starting pitchers in this league, but he's not a 2-pitch guy. He does a small arsenal, but he throws 3 pitches, and they're all above average. They're all above average. He is a classic stuff guy. I mean, he's got a 4-seam that sits at 97, averages 97. He has a slider that sits at 88 and a change that sits at 92. So he throws everything hard, and everything has a lot of movement. His fastball is considered a 70 grade based off spin and velocity. And like I said, his slider and change are both above average, but his command is below average. So I think what people get confused with when they say 2-pitch guy is that he has a small arsenal. There could be days where his command is below average and only 1 pitch is working. And that's where he will struggle. I mean, he is a guy that is going, and I think he will be like this for the rest of his career. He's more of like a 3, that he is going to be up and down, and he's going to look really, really good. And some days he's going to look really, really bad. But he's got one of the highest 4-seam whiff rates amongst qualified starters. And he often, even though his slider and change are plus and above average pitches, he often opts to punch out hitters with his fastball. So he loves to go to his fastball, and he relies on it. Should be a fun matchup between him and Skeens.
Yeah, but all I have left on this: splits versus lefties 206, 312, 385 versus righties 167, 284, 273.
Gross. I think this is what the Yankees were hoping that. I don't want to say Severino, because Severino did have a good stint, but I think there's
Domingo Germán.
I think they were this is kind of what they wished for Montas and Severino, to be honest.
Yeah.
With you. Alrighty, so Sunday we predict Clark Schmidt to be the starter. I almost guarantee that he'll start this series, even if it's not Sunday. Clark Schmidt has missed a good portion of the season. He started off really, really hot. He's 5-5 with a 2.55 ERA in 15 games started, 88 Ks, 116 WHIP. His arsenal includes a cutter, a sweeper, a sinker, a curve, and a change. Like I said, he struggled early with injury, and also in his first couple of years in the pros, he was more of like a long man. He got spot starts, but he wasn't performing well a second time, third time through a lineup until this year, where he made some notable changes. He increased the percentage of his fastballs thrown. And I'm not just talking about a four seam. I'm talking about his cutter and his sinker as well. He's throwing all three of those about 60% of the time. And with that, his strikeout percentage increased. He's never been a swing and miss guy until this year. So Clark Schmidt is a fun young arm. He's got a low 3/4 slot, and his fastball's got all of his pitches got a ton of movement. He was a guy who got Tommy John his junior year of college when he was drafted out of South Carolina, and him and Michael King have a little bit of similarities where their pitches move a lot east to west. And they have a lot of movement, a lot of tail. So I know this is a guy that they're trying to get innings for. So I guarantee you will see him sometime this weekend.
Low exit velocities, high K rate, like you mentioned, not going to get barreled a ton. A lot of movement in the windup, like you mentioned, in that 3/4 arm slide. It almost looks like he's going to come over the top the way the arm goes all the way up to the release point. And it's not arm side. It's not directly over the top, but it, like you mentioned, he's able to generate a lot of movement on these pitches. He's got a curveball, which is actually a knuckle curve. He goes to 18% of the time, 83 miles per hour. The expected batting average, or the batting average on the cutters, 250, and the sinkers 276. Nothing goes above that. So overall, pretty good year. This Yankees rotation, man, has so many guys. We're missing Garrett Cole this week and Marcus Stroman. So not the best way to end the year out in the Bronx. You're going to face a very good Yankees team. But hey, I'm looking forward to seeing Paul Skeens versus Aaron Judge multiple times.
And Juan Soto. And also, I'm sure everyone knows this already, though, but we end this season with the Yankees and we open next season with the Yankees. So let's have some fun with it. We'll probably see Garrett Cole on opening day, never mind. That'll be our home opener. So it's not actually opening day. We may see him next year, but still, we're going to see a lot of the Yankees here to end the year and then to open next year at PNC Park. Gonna miss going to PNC Park, man. This has been a really, really fun spring, summer, fall. And man, it's our first, I don't want to get sentimental, but this is our first full season with the Pirates and Bucco banner. So
yeah, man, three more games. And
three more games.
Officially made it. But yeah, we're wrapped up on the home season. I went to 60 games this year, Scott, and I think you're probably right there.
Probably
60 games. When I tell people that, they look at me with like a crazed look, like you're an idiot. Why are you doing that to yourself?
It's like Tim Robinson in the Nacho skit. What?
It's bizarre, but man, I enjoyed every second of it when we were out there watching the games, talking to so many people around the park. We met so many cool people that now we just go to the stadium and a ton of people there just from Bucco banter, from interviewing people, from just talking to people in the outfield. It was such a cool experience, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
I promise you that we are only going to keep getting better, and there's going to be a lot more that we can do next year with the resources that we're going to build up into next season. So I am so excited for it. It will be nice to have a little bit of a break.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think my wallet and I don't think I can do another month. I'm going to miss PNC Park. I want to say that, but I spent a lot of money there, and it's definitely going to be nice to maybe not spend as much money. But we're definitely going to find ways to drive excitement around this team, even though I know you guys don't want to be excited about the Pirates right now, given everything that's going on. There's a lot of things happening during the offseason. We've got the Arizona Fall League. We've got the Dominican Winter League. We've got the offseason. We got the hot stove. Like, we're going to be talking about the Pirates all the way up until spring training, until the team gets to Bradenton. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Shout out Jack from Just Baseball. He made his way to PNC Park this week to see the stadium. It was awesome spending time with him. We're wearing our Just Baseball shirts today. I just realized both of us are
we didn't
wearing
plan this.
it. Didn't plan it at all. Go follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Threads, on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment, like. We're thinking about maybe going live eventually.
Yeah.
So the more people that join, the better. But until then, let's raise it.
Raise it, baby.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates, or the steak by the plates. And